Good evening, America. Welcome to Cross Country. So, the former president, Donald Trump, has been indicted by the Soros-backed New York District Attorney, Alvin Bragg. Now, this news came as a shock for people all over the political spectrum, but mostly for me. The most shocking part was Alvin Bragg was actually charging someone with a crime and trying to lock them up. Now, if you aren't familiar with Bragg, he's a prosecutor who prides himself on reform, which basically means letting repeat offenders off the hook and not bothering to lock up violent criminals. People like Charles Lindsay, an alleged gang member who was facing 4 felony counts for grand larceny in December after robbing high-end Manhattan stores. So instead of prosecuting the case, Bragg agreed to let Lindsay go if he went to some diversion program. Lindsay reportedly never showed up, but while back on the street, he showed up to a playground with a loaded pistol and robbed a 14-year-old. Then there's the case of Mary Saunders. She took part in the 2018 murder of Hassan Correa. We shared his story last week on Cross Country. Authorities say Saunders held up the 35-year-old Army veteran and father of 2 down on the ground while her brother stabbed him to death. Under Alvin Bragg's administration, she was eventually given a plea deal, downgrading her charges to second-degree assault, and of course, she was let off on time served. You gotta remember this one from last summer. A 16-year-old boy caught on camera beating a cop over the head at a subway station in Harlem. This was just a month after he'd been arrested for possession of a pistol and a crossbow. Bragg's office once again released the suspect without bail before transferring the case to a juvenile court. Then we have the case of serial thief Lorenzo McLucas. He was released after being arrested for the 129th time, this time shoplifting at a Target. Democrats like to say no one is above the law, but it's clear they only mean that when they're targeting their political opponents. Because when it comes to protecting and serving the law-abiding citizens of New York, their priorities are clearly somewhere else. So we hit the streets of New York and asked New Yorkers their opinion on the current situation with crime, as well as the indictment of Donald Trump. Watch. How safe is New York City?
Oh God, it's gone down the tubes.
Yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
Do you feel like it's getting any better?
No, no, unfortunately.
Evening comes in, you can't go out the door.
It's New York. You know, every city has some crime. You have to be aware. You always have to pay attention, but I mean, I think it's still safer than it once was.
Just the other day, a couple of weeks ago, they jumped my kid's father and...
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's getting bad out here.
It just depends on there's areas and, you know, just how you move and where you go at certain times of the day.
New York is definitely not what it used to be, and you feel the impact, even in what used to be very safe neighborhoods.
So they just decided to charge Donald Trump. Do you think it's going to make New York safer?
Absolutely not.
I really don't know why they're focusing more on Donald Trump when they should be focusing on the crime out here, you know, because crime is very bad.
New York is not going to change, like, because Donald Trump is in jail.
If you do something wrong, regardless of your wealth or your position, you should be held accountable.
Leaders in New York City care more about going after their political opponents than actually dealing with the issues in the city.
Everybody's making it seem like, oh, he might go to jail and stuff. But at the end of the day, we really got to focus on New York, like on the people.
Here now, a mother whose son lost her life in New York City, Linda Clary, and Jennifer Harrison, the founders of Victims' Right New York. Ladies, thanks so much for joining the program. Jennifer, I want to start with you. It just seems like there's a lot going on in New York City that we could be spending our time on. Why isn't the DA more interested in the victims?
Look, from day one, Alvin Bragg announced that he would not prosecute even the most violent of criminals. Almost immediately after he took office and distributed the now infamous Day One memo, 2 police officers lost their lives. A 19-year-old girl was shot and killed while working at a Burger King in Harlem. He's downgraded 52% of felonies and only has about a 50% conviction rate. He's completely incompetent, and to be honest with you, we knew that this was going to happen. We warned of it during the campaign, and we were the first to call for his removal from office as a victims advocacy group when he issued that memo.
Linda, when you hear the district attorney says, you know, no one is above the law, He comes out so forceful. He now has a security detail protecting him because he's held now as this big hero for justice. But you lost your son. Was he a hero then?
No. And when I look at the people who took my son's life, they are the very people that you're referring to in the statistics because they are career criminals. And it's basically a revolving door. And no one is safe in New York until these people are behind bars. And clearly the reform programs are not working.
Yeah. Jennifer, do you think the New Yorkers are buying this? Because that's my question. I know it's a very progressive city, but we've seen the fruits of this little experiment. And things aren't getting better. So do you think they're cheering him along the way?
I don't. I think there are a select few that, of the progressives that maybe 188,000 people out of 2 million voters in New York that did vote for him. But look, things have not gotten any better. They've only gotten progressively, pun intended, worse. He released a woman, Mary Saunders, that you mentioned, that participated in the brutal murder of a United States veteran. So in Alvin Bragg's New York, you can literally get away with murder, and criminals are absolutely above the law. People are sick of it. I have victims calling me on a daily basis because he refuses to prosecute violent recidivists. His excuse is discovery reform, a policy he supports, by the way, and that he doesn't have enough resources to make sure New Yorkers don't get killed by taking very violent people off the streets, but he has the resources to prosecute a former president on charges that everyone else decided he couldn't be prosecuted for. I think people have had enough.
Yeah, Linda, did you ever hear from the DA's office? Like, did they ever call you, walk you through the charges? Did they ever let you know what was going on?
Well, in that sense, no. ADA Emily Ching actually did meet with me and go over a few things. But at the end of the day, the reason I came forward was because the DA's office was refusing to move forward on these charges. And that is the root of the problem. And I am so sorry to District Attorney Bragg that he had to see what he saw growing up in Harlem, white police brutality. I'm sorry for that. But that does not replace that my child and every other New Yorker deserves to be safe, and we cannot make up for what happened to him. My son was gay. The gay pride movement began in New York City because of police brutality. We have to move forward and still hold people accountable, whether it's a former president or presidents, as well as the average person, because people are not safe in New York right now. And who wants to go to New York when you're not safe?
Well, no one does.
Why bother?
No one does. That's the answer to that. Ladies, thanks so much for joining the program.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.